Hi everyone, and welcome back to Iowa Math Chats. Today's episode is on the focus documents. Before we get into the focus documents and how those can help us to implement the standards, I want to tell you a little bit about the group that has designed the focus documents. They were created by Student Achievement Partners, which is a nonprofit organization that continued after the standards to work across this country in classrooms with students and teachers to create resources and tools to help us implement the standards and to understand them better. You can find their resources at the Achieve the Core website, and you can also find them on Twitter, and they use the hashtag Core Advocates. Now, these are just two of the mathematics consultants at Student Achievement Partners, and you can see from their bios that they've been at state departments, they're highly credentialed, and I share this because it's important to know that the work that we're using comes from experts. They also work closely with Jason Zimbaugh, who's one of the lead authors of writing the math standards, and he is a co-founder of Student Achievement Partners. So this is how we know that we can go and trust the resources on this website to be aligned to the standards and help us to implement them. So next, I want to talk to you about how there is shifts in the math standards. And the first one is focus. There's 3 shifts. We're going to first talk about focus. And that's the part of college and career readiness where the standards call for a greater focus, which means instead of being a mile wide and an inch deep, we want to really spend our instructional time and resources on the things that make a difference for students in being college and career readiness. And so they've created this resource so that we can understand that. Previously in the last math chat, I talked about the clusters. And so what this document or this tool does is it helps us to understand what are the major ones. And so there's clusters that bring the standards together, and now we're going to talk about 3 types of clusters. There's the major work of the grade, the supporting work of the grade, and the additional work of the grade. So the green ones are the major. It's where we want to spend most of our time and energy. The blue ones are the supporting, and the yellow are the additional work. So let's go back and look at our kindergarten example here. So when you look at this, you'll see that these are all the clusters. So in kindergarten, there are 9 clusters. I think in the last video I said 10, there's 9. And so you'll see that these 3 right here, those are 3 that we talked about in the last math chat. And we said that students at the end of kindergarten needed these 3. They need all of them, right? So this isn't saying that they don't need any of the 9 clusters. What this is saying is that these colors and these shapes say, where should you spend the majority of your instructional time and resources? What are the most critical clusters? And in kindergarten, there are 5 critical clusters. So you should spend between 65 and 85% of the time in instruction on these. Now, I'm not just making this up. This is actually on the document below, down here in really little print. So it says at least 65 and up to approximately 85% of class time should be spent on these green clusters to make sure that all your kindergartners have a good understanding of this before going on to first grade. So what do you do with the additional 15% of the time? Well, you go down to these other 4 clusters. Now, what if your students, after using 70% of your instructional time, you feel like have a good understanding of this and you're like, they're ready to go on? Then go on. That's the flexibility in this guidance. So again, these green boxes, this is where we should be spending the majority of our time in kindergarten, and then the additional time below. I hope you'll join us for the next chat where we'll talk about this document more.